Okay, so we've cut all 5 pieces, our 3 rails, our bottom back, and our bottom front. We've cut them all to length. Now we have to cut them to width. So let's go over to the table saw. So get in the habit of putting your material over on the right side of the fence, kind of out of the way. First thing is, let's set our blade height, which is still set from our previous cut. So that gullet, which is this groove, right at top dead center, is about 3 millimeters above your material. Don't go by the tooth, go by the gullet. So this right here, see if I can draw that in. Right from there down to this material is 3 millimeters. Okay? And you do that for all your, whatever thickness the material is. So, well here, since we've got a rail here, let's cut our rails. Our rails have to be cut to 6 centimeters. So, we've got our blade height established. Come over here, set your fence to exactly 6 centimeters. Like so. Clamp the handle down. Make sure you have a push stick. Set it right there. And now we'll get ready to cut these to width. So turn your saw on. Same process as before. Make sure your left hand is down. Your fingers are pushing your material tight against the fence. Your thumb is holding it down. Now these are short enough, you can start with the push stick in place. Take your push stick, lock it in, and we're going to start cutting. Left hand stays in place, right hand pushes your material through. Now just make sure your push stick, the back of your push stick gets past this little bump on the saw, and you're in good shape. Clear that out of there. You're going to scrap out, do this to your other 3 pieces. So, tight up against the fence, push stick in place. Okay, get that out of the road. One more to do here for the rails anyhow. Left hand, right hand. Fingers pushing tight against the fence, thumb holding the material down. There we go. Now next we will do the bottom back, and it is 15.4 centimeters wide. So again, you don't have to mark any lines on your material for width, just set the fence. So 15.4 centimeters. Clamp her down, and now we'll cut this one to 15.4. Then same process. Hold the piece tight against the fence, push stick roughly in the middle. Don't have it all over to one edge, it'll tend to turn away from the fence. If you have it over here, it wants to bind against the fence. Just roughly in the center. Left hand now comes over here out of the way. That out of the road. That out of the road. And then our last piece, the bottom front, we need to cut to 19.5. So again, we'll adjust our fence over to 19.5. When you get it close, I just tap here, not up here, further up on the fence. Tap down here and it'll tend to be a little easier for you to get to the right spot. What did I say? 19.5. So there we are at 19.5. Again, it moved on me a bit when I clamped it. There we go, 19.5. We'll cut this, and then we've got all our pieces cut to width. All right, we're set to 19.5. Left hand in place. Push stick roughly in the center. And let's cut this to 19.5. Again, wait for everything to stop before you reach in there. Pull that one over there. Get it out of the way. Pull this one straight out, not off to the side. It tends to break the guard. Straight out. And that's the 5 pieces cut. Okay, now that we've got all our rails and our front and our back cut to length and width, now we have to put in the rabbet. We want to put the rabbet in prior to cutting in our notches. Okay, and you'll see why in a moment. So this drawing, this is our rabbet right here, okay, and this is to actual size. So we have our thickness of our material. We do not have the length. The reason being is the paper's not big enough. So this at this end, you don't have to draw it. That's just called the break line, Okay, you just need to draw this L shape right here. So, real easy, it's 2 lines. We can measure right off of there. If you like using metric, it is 18 mils. It's actually 18.5 mils, but we won't be quite that picky. So there's 15, 16, 17, 18, right there. Take your square and put that and draw that in. My felt pen's bleeding a little bit here, but that's okay. And then our depth is 1 centimeter. Okay, so then mark 1 centimeter right there. 1 centimeter over here. Be nice and accurate with this. And draw your line. And we are going to notch out all of this. And that's going to be our rabbit, and we're going to do it at both ends. And we're going to do it to all 5 pieces. So it's the same thing on all 5, so you don't have to mark it out on all 5. Just mark it out on 1, okay? And then we can set the saw according to this one, and these will all be the same. All right, so let's go over to the table saw. All right, first thing you want to do when you get to the dado saw is you want to set the blade height. So we want to notch out, where's my pen here? We want to notch out this portion here. So we have to bring this tooth, I'll try and draw it in here, this black tooth, okay, right up to that height, right there. So you lay your piece of material beside like so, and let's raise the blade up. And so if you look real closely, you can see that the blade height now is right at my line, and that's what I'm looking for. Now we've got our height established. Now we want to use the miter gauge and get this stop in the right place for all 5 pieces. Okay, so bring it up. We have our mark right there. So we're going to go to the edge of, let's just choose this tooth right here, to the outer edge of it with our line like so. Once you get it there, hold everything in place, drop your stopper down, push it nice and up against there, lock it in place. This tends to move a little bit, so I always do a bit of a double check. And we're looking good. So we've got our height established, we've now got our width established, so now we can cut this. Hand positioning, you'd like to be way out here, but that actually doesn't work very well because what happens is the blade pushes the material up. So you put your left hand right in front of where your right hand's going to be, and your right hand's going to be on the miter gauge handle. Okay? You can even move the fence out of the way so it doesn't distract us for any reason. So make sure you're tight up against the stop, and we'll get this going. I'm going to double check, nothing moved on me, we're looking good. So, right hand on the handle, left hand, couple of fingers pulling the piece tight against the miter gauge, and try and get your index finger putting some pressure on your piece of material to hold it down. All right, we're ready to go here. Turn it on. Right hand, left hand, and do a slow cut to get a smoother cut. Get beyond the blade. If you're coordinated, and most of you are, pick your piece up with your left hand, pull the miter gauge back, go end for end. And we don't have to mark this one, it's exactly the same as this one. There we go, that's what we're looking for. So now we have our 2 rabbits, and we can do this to the rest of the pieces. Okay, so you need all 5 pieces sitting here when you set this up, because it's the same setup for all 5 and you don't want to have to change it. And there you go, that's the rabbits. All right, so now it's time to do the wider pieces. So the only thing that's different here is just your hand positioning a little bit. So again, put it tight against your miter gauge, down against your stop. Now, depending on the size of your hand, you may not be able to reach all the way out here. So bring your hand in, make sure you have some pressure down with your index finger, and have some pressure down with the other hand, or other part of your hand, your fingers, I guess. thumb hooked on here, and it keeps everything in place so that we're not encroaching on the red throat plate. You always want to be safe. Don't do things unsafely. All right, right hand, the left hand, we got a little pressure down, tight against our stop, and pick it up, turn it around, and do this one. And now we'll do the front piece, that's for the back. Do the front. Again, we don't change this setup, this remains the same. So this piece even wider. So again, hook your thumb on the miter gauge, get some pressure down on your piece, and slowly bring it through the saw. Pick it up. Now, this one, and I'm going to show you one other little thing. Let's say that you ran into a problem and you ended up that it lifted up on you a little bit. That's not a big deal. All you have to do is run it through again. So let's say that happened and we have a bump here, a high spot. Just take it, put it back in place, and just run it through again, and it'll clean that up. And there you go. So we have our rabbets cut on all 5 pieces. Now we have to get ready to put the notches in the bottom front and the bottom back. Okay, it is now time to put the notches in the bottom front and the bottom back. I'll show you on the bottom front, but the bottom back's done in the same fashion. So if we look at our drawing, it comes over 7.7 centimeters, and then we're going to do our 45 degrees. So the bottom edge of this, we'll mark our 7.7. Do it at the other end. In this case, I just put the 7.7 right on the edge, then make my tick at the end. Take your miter square, get it all nice and lined up, draw your line, and then we can do this other side, like that. Felt pen's dying off here on me. And the height of that notch is 5.2. So again, we'll measure up 5.2, make a little tick, come down here, 5.2, might as well put our tick inside so we don't have felt pen marks everywhere. Line those 2 up, draw your line across, and there's our notch, and we'll cut it in the same fashion. Okay, so we will go, we'll cut number 1 right here, number 2, number 3, and I like to use my arm kind of like a compass when I draw my arcs. So I use my elbow as the pivot point, and I just draw an arc up to here. So we'll go right to here, that'll be number 3, and then number 4 will go back in this direction. So we have to do that to both the bottom back and the bottom front. So we'll do that over at the bandsaw. All right, so we're getting ready to cut the notch, and it's just the same way you did the sides. So we're gonna go in here, number 1. Nice and slow and accurate. I mark this. Back up, I wanna get a little closer to my line. Right to there, back it out. Number 2. Right to there, back it out. Now our long gradual curve, number 3. Again, this one, you don't have to stay right on the line. Our goal is to get up here and be going nice and straight by the time we get there. Okay, so we'll blend that in with the straight line. So nice and straight and accurate. So, get rid of that. And then number 4 is straight along this way. So, just carefully get started. So nice and slow so you end up in the right spot. And then you just continue your cut. There we go. Now, it's the exact same process for this piece. I'm not going to bore you with that. You already should know how to do that. All right, it's now time to cut a couple pieces for the top and bottom step. So we need a piece of material that is about 10.5 wide, not 10.5 centimeters, 10.5 inches. So that looks like it's either one of these ones. It's either that one. Nope, too narrow. It is that one right there, 10.5 inches. And we will grab that and we'll cut that with the miter saw. All right, so we need 2 pieces cut for the steps. So they're 18.25 inch long. So we'll mark this at 18.25 inches. Or your X on the side, you don't care how long it is. This is the part I want at 18.25. Keep your piece tight against the fence. Bring your blade out and get it lined up right there. Left hand in place. There's one step, and we'll cut another step at the same length, 18.25, and then we'll have to cut them to width. Okay, tight against the fence. Slide it over, get the blade lined up on this side over here. Hand there, start it. There we go. Now we just want to cut one piece. We want to rip one piece to 10.1/8 wide. We have to determine the width of the second step, the bottom step, later on. So let's go with the table saw. All right, we now want to cut our top step to 10.1/8. The lower step, we'll determine that later on. So 10.1/8 right there. Our blade height is still set from our previous cut, so we're good. Again, we're going to cut this one. This one we won't use a push stick. Left hand's going to be there, right hand is going to be back here, kind of like what you did on the sides. As long as your right hand is not encroaching on the red throat plate, okay, you'll be okay. Okay? Don't stick your thumb out, then you might not be okay. All right, so we'll turn it on. Left hand, right hand, okay, or you can put your thumb under the board. But never let go of this piece of wood, because that's what causes kickback. So I'm cutting, watching the fence. Now my thumb is now hitting the table saw, with the saw itself. So I'm just going to keep everything in place except my thumb. I'm going to move it up and continue along. There we clear the blade, cut it off, wait for it to stop. And we'll be back here in a few minutes to I'll show you how to get the width for the lower step, and we'll come and cut it. Okay, so we now have all of the parts. Okay, the one thing I like to do, I really like to have you mark the top step and the bottom step, because they look like they're a pretty similar size, but the top step is already cut to size. It won't change. The bottom step is still TBD, to be determined. So we have our front and back, we have our rails, we have our sides, and we have our 2 steps. So you want to do a dry setup, and a dry setup is like a rehearsal. So let's clear a little bit of room here. You shouldn't need a whole bunch of clamps for this. You'll need a couple, and you'll have to be creative, and you might have to borrow somebody else, one of your classmates, and have them hold pieces for you a little bit. Try not to. All right, so I've got my sides. I'm just going to fold everything up, like so. Fold this one up, like so. Now, this is where people run into problems. This is where you might need the extra hands. Just going to put that in there, and you have to, have some finesse about it. Okay, so that's sitting together pretty good. Now, the easiest way to clamp this is just with one clamp. So get a light F clamp, and open it up. Rest it on here, and let's see if we can get this together without it falling apart. So don't reef on it yet. Oh, there, it's falling. That one's in place. Slide that up. Make sure this is in before you start putting any pressure on the clamp. Okay, so everything's in place more or less. We can tap it into place a little bit more once it's got a little more pressure on it. Tap that into place. Move that over. Tap this one into place. That one's looking pretty good. Put a little more pressure on this. Oh, a little high. Lower the pressure. And you're going to go through different things here. Even when I'm doing it, I don't always get it right the first time, and I have to play around with it. that in, get that in. Now put a little more pressure on there. There, that's basically holding the bottom and front and the sides all together. Now we have to put the rails in. Okay. What I might do is I might move this back just a little bit so I have room for the rail. Slide one rail in here. You might have to force it in a little bit. That's okay. If you've done your work accurately, everything should fit together pretty good. And then we're going to end up putting one up here. With any luck, it'll be a friction fit. There, that one friction fits in there. Okay, everything is looking pretty good there. Now this one, is that going to friction fit? No, see, that's going to fall. So grab another light F clamp, put it on the underside. Don't put it on top. The reason being it's going to be hard to measure if you put it on the top. So again, try and do this on your own, but if you can't, okay, talk to somebody, communicate, politely ask them for a hand. 2 hands preferably. No pun intended. Get a little pressure on there. Remember, once it clamps in place, you can still move it. I've got the clamp held up. If you can't move it, go get a hammer, not a mallet, get a hammer and tap it. Okay, and there we go. Oh, I have to lower that a little bit. That's too high. Our step won't fit on. Lower that. There we go. Pressure on, just make sure everything's still in place. There we go. All right, so if you get it like that, you're good to start laying things out. Now, we have to measure the top step first. So the best way to get this centered, because we don't want it too far to the left or too far to the right or hanging out too far that way, let's do left and right first. So what I want you to do is flush this out so it's nice and flush here. At this end, you want to measure this. Now, I like to divide metric a lot more than I like to divide imperial. That way I limit how many fractions I have to figure out. So I measure this in metric. So I have 56 mils. Okay, so divide 56 by 2, and then we'll move that over. Now I'm not going to give you the answer to that, but maybe you can see it on the video. Half of 56 right there. So if I have half of 56 over here on this side, then over on this side I will have half of 56. Yours might be 58, 60, okay, it depends how accurate you work. So you want equal overhang here and here. Once you establish that, take your pencil and put a mark on the underside so that it's easy to line up when you are when you're gluing and stapling it together. So just take your pencil, put a line under there, and same thing on this side, put a line just under here, like so. Okay, so that it's easy to line up left to right. So we have left to right established. Now we have to do front and back. So we do it in the same fashion. So we flush it out on one side. So let's go this side so it's a little easier for me to measure. Measure this overhang, and we have 54 mils. So half of 54. We're going to set it right there. And that half of 54 will be here, and we'll have the same amount over here. Okay, so that's all there is to centering. Once you get it in position like that, okay, I just moved it, make sure it's still good, we're still good. Then, again, put your lines on the underside, like so, and like so. Not sure if my pen's marking, oh yeah. And then the same thing back here. All right, so if we look at the underside of the top step, okay, we have our alignment marks. Okay, and that's going to be really important when you're gluing, because you don't want to be measuring when there's glue all over the place. All right, now our overhang for the bottom step is the same left to right, but front to back it's different. Okay, so we had this position, so our overhang is right there. In this case, I think we said it was 27. So what you want to do is you want to measure from your rail, when that's in place, from the over to here. So we have, we can be a mil off, I guess, 21 centimeters. So 21 plus, we need a 2.7 overhang in this case. Again, yours may be different than that. Okay, so we have 210 millimeters plus 27 mils. So plus 27 mils equals, hopefully you can do the math, 237 millimeters. That's how wide we have to cut our bottom step. Okay, so let's go do that. All right, we've set our fence to a proper size. Left hand, right hand. And now we have our bottom step. Okay, so we've cut our bottom step. We don't need to worry about the overhang now that it's cut, so we don't have to get it that way. We just have to get our left and right established. So all you have to do, measure what this one was if you don't remember, and I don't. All right, and then on the underside of this, the same measurement. Right there. Means it'll be the same down here. And I'm not giving you the measurements because everybody's will be a little different. It depends how accurate you work. Take your square, mark that line along there so it's easy to line up when we're gluing. And our line over here. That way all we have to do is duck our head underneath and we can nail it in place when we're at that point, because we will just get it lined up using our reference lines on the underside. Okay. Eventually we'll take all these clamps off and we'll get everything put in place. So once you get this all established, I want to see this. I want to check that you have everything built to the right size, because once we start gluing and stapling, there's no going back. Okay, so once you get it to this step, or to this stage, let me take a look at it and I'll tell you if you can go ahead or not. Okay, so that's your dry setup right there. That's what it should look like. All right, it's now time to start assembling. So go grab the air compressor, okay, and let's bring it over. We have to plug it in. It's the first thing I want you to do, because if it hasn't been used today, it might not have any air in it. So there are two things we have to connect. The blue one is for air, so we don't connect that one yet. Okay, again, we want to get the electrical plugged in right away so it starts making compressed air. Sometimes, if it didn't have any air in it, it would start running. Don't be alarmed. That's what it's supposed to do. Now, we're ready to hook up the air. Get an air hose, and all you have to do to disconnect it, if it's connected here, is just slide this knurled part back with your index finger and thumb. Okay, and to put it back in, put it right in place. Okay, but you'll basically have to release this one. Take it, and there it's good. So now this end has to go in here. And it can go in any one of these three. Sometimes I don't even have this on. If it's just like this, okay, just put this right in here. Okay, the best way to do it is to use the handle kind of as a fulcrum. Take it, pull the knurled part back just a little bit, push it in, and you're fighting 100 and something PSI. So I'll do that again. So push that little knurled part back a little bit. Get this going straight. Don't go be at an angle. Nice and straight. Push it in and double check that it's locked in there before you let it go. Because if you let it go and it still has air pressure but it's not locked, it might come up and hit you in the face. Okay, so that's just with the single coupling. Okay, to disconnect, just push that knurled part back. Now I'll just throw this on so you can see how to use this one. We use this one mainly if we're using two airlines, if we have 2 or 3 people working on the compressor at the same time. So that's in place. Again, same kind of process, might not be able to use the handle as a fulcrum. Choose any one of these 3, it doesn't matter, the middle one's the easiest one. Pull that back and Push that straight in, and there you go. So now you have air in this hose, which will run our staple gun. So when you are selecting which gun to use, they both look very similar. I've written on them, nailer and stapler. So you want to use the stapler. And then we want to open it, and you don't want to open it like this. Okay, you want to hold it up this way or else all the staples will fall out. We want to check what length of staple we have in there. So at the back here, we just depress that knob, and let's take a look. And our staples are 1.25 inches long, and that's what we're looking for. We want 1.25 inch staples for this project. Okay, so there are different lengths of staples. We'll need 1.25 inches. So if it was inch in there, get rid of the inch, put them back in the box, get some 1.25 inches, drop them in like so, point facing out, and close the magazine just like that. That's ready to go. Okay, so we might need more staples. Need the air, and we'll get ourselves a little organized. So hook your gun up. It hooks up the same way. Pull that knurled part back, push it on. You'll kind of hear it, and then make sure you move that forward so it clicks in. There we go. So that's ready. So now you've got this established. I've already checked it, and I've told you you're good to go. Now you want to dismantle this in an organized fashion. First of all, make some room for yourself. So let's move all these layout tools over. We shouldn't need them, actually. I don't think we'll need them at all anymore. Because we can put our marks on the underside. You can get that book out of the way. Slide this roughly in the middle. Steps are organized. Let's just put them over here. Then basically when you take the clamps off, unfold it. Okay? So just keep yourself organized. So this one's going to go back here. This one's going to be at the front, so we'll keep it near the front. But this one's going to be the lower one at the front. Put it right there. Get rid of the clamp. And these ones, just take this clamp off. Get it out of the road because you want a nice clear work area because you're going to have pieces all over the place. Lay that one down like so. Lay that one down like so. Lay this one down like so. And that one. So when we go to glue this, all you're really doing is lifting each piece up and nailing them, or in this case stapling. So your glue bottle is a little plugged up. If you have trouble getting this unplugged, just let me know and I'll fix it for you. You don't want to shove glue back in there. You don't have to. And we don't want that. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'll show you a couple things about the nail gun or the staple gun before I put glue in here. Because once the glue is on, we have to start working before the glue dries. And we only have a couple of minutes. So the nail gun, if you look at it closely, at the tip, right here, okay, this is where the nail comes out. You can actually see where the staple slot is. I keep saying nail, but this is a staple gun. We're using staples. So that's where it comes out. So that's going to be important in a moment because you're going to want to know where the nail or the staple comes out. So it's going to come out right in line with this line. All right. This part here is a safety. That has to be depressed onto the wood before the trigger will shoot. Okay? So, we've got that established. So take your glue bottle. And you want to put a bead of glue. You don't have to smear it with your hand. You want to go roughly in the center. Don't start at the end. Start about 1 centimeter in, and then stop 1 centimeter before the end. Now, we're just going to fold everything back up. So, get that in place. You don't need any clamps. The nails or the staples are going to work as a clamp. Hold that together so it's nice and tight. Take your nail gun and put one down here a few centimeters up. Okay, and you're trying to get that nail in to the middle of this piece of material. Might be easier to see up here. So basically we want the nail to go through here and into the center of this piece, the side. So get it in place. Remember the nails coming, or the staples coming out right here. And pull the trigger, and we'll put in about 4. And that's all there is to it. Okay, so there's that one. Use that wonderful thing called gravity. Put more glue on this side, like so. Up, down, work fast so the glue doesn't roll out. Put that nice and in place again. And all right, now we're going to do the front, or the back actually, sorry. Just going to turn it around. Same process, glue, about that much, a few millimeters wide. Now we have to glue this one at the same time because we have to get both sides locked into the rabbet. Okay, so we get that one in place, hold it. Always make sure your hand's at least 1.25 inches away, because if you have 1.25 inch staples, if your hand's too close and the nail deflects, it might stick into your hand, which is probably not the way you want to spend your day. There we go. Now we use gravity some more. Do this one here. And now we have to do both at the same time. Put that in there. I have to bend this a little bit to get it in. There we go. Get that nice and flush at the top. And we just probably need 2 staples in this one. 1, 2. That nice and flush. You don't want it up like that. Then your step's not going to sit very nicely. Flip it over. That one in place. That. A couple more nails. And then our last rail. Again, it's not quite fitting, so force it in there. Okay, shouldn't take a tremendous amount of force. If it does, cut it too long or too short. Too long, I guess. There we go. Nail, 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 nail. Now, this is where all those reference lines come in handy. So, we're going to now nail the bottom step in place. So put glue all the way around the perimeter, like that. Now we have our reference lines down here. You don't have to worry about the front and back. You just have to worry about left to right on this one because it butts up against there. Look underneath. So, then when you're nailing, kind of look where you're trying to get the nail into. So, there. There, there. Again, get nice and lined up. And we'll go this way. And put a few in the front here too. Center. Oh. If the nail gun doesn't, or the staple gun or the nail gun doesn't nail, it means you're out of staples. Open it up. Grab some staples. In, close the cartridge, and you're back in business. All right, so there's our bottom step put in place. Let's put glue around the perimeter for the top step. And again, you don't have to spread this, just try and put a bead roughly down the center. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to kind of spread itself anyhow. Take our top step, have our reference lines. And we look underneath. And there's that one. Front and back. Get that all lined up nice. And then you're kind of lining things up by eye. You're kind of working blind here a little bit. There we go. And that is construction 1160, your step stool. Okay? So that usually takes kids 4 or 5 days to build. And that is it.